This rig was a total loss. Miraculously, nobody was hurt, but people are hurt and killed as a result of blowouts. And you know, it's so senseless because a thorough check of the blowout preventer could eliminate this waste of property and loss of lives. Now think about it for a second. Is your life and the life of your friends worth risking simply to save a few minutes? Because that's all it takes to check this thing out properly. And remember, if your rig burns down, you're out of a job. So let's go ahead and go through the procedures of an inspection, and you can take notes on anything that you feel might be important. The first thing to do is to familiarize yourself with the names and locations of the parts we'll be working with. The body of the Cameron Type U BOP is a single forged unit. This gives you maximum strength. The important sealing surfaces are finished to exact specifications. This section here is the intermediate flange. It's bolted to the bonnet, and both the bonnet and intermediate flange are bolted to the preventer body by these 4 bonnet bolts. The rams are located inside the preventer cavity here. Naturally, our working conditions are a little better than yours, but you should take a few extra minutes to improve your conditions. For you guys on land rigs, your cellars are probably wet and dirty. Lay some boards down so you can get things a little bit cleaner, and so that this bottom preventer isn't so hard to reach. Everybody's situation is different, but a couple of minutes in preparing your area for work can make the job easier and will help you do a better job. Now let's get on with the inspection procedure. This inspection is your best guard against blowouts, so pay particular attention to what we're about to show you. These 4 bonnet bolts hold the bonnet closed tight against the preventer body. You should loosen all of them on both bonnets. They're probably torqued down pretty tight. At least they should be, so it's going to involve a little bit of work to loosen them. Make sure that all 8 bolts are completely loosened. Okay, all of them are removed. So connect your hydraulic pressure to the closed side of the preventer. As the pressure builds up, it'll push the bonnets out. There shouldn't be any leaks of hydraulic fluid anywhere. Go ahead and check. If you see a leak, you've got a problem, and you shouldn't use this preventer in this condition. Remember that in the event of a kick, if there's anything at all wrong with your preventer, you could lose your rig and your life. Okay, now that the bonnets are fully opened, you can take the rams out. They just slip off. But you can use the lifting eye located here on the intermediate flange to help in lifting the ram out. You can either insert a bar through the lifting eye or use an air hoist or lift. Be careful not to hit these 2 bars with the ram. These are the ram change pistons. Be real careful not to damage them. Okay, now make sure that there's no serious damage to the ram bore area. Inspect it real close to be sure that there isn't any damage. Anything that might start a leak under high pressure should be inspected carefully. Minor scratches aren't too much of a problem, but this gouge could cause a leak. Use a file to smooth out any scars or gouges. You also need a good tight seal here, between the bonnet and the preventer body. These 2 areas are milled down to a really close fit, and any damage that would keep them apart at all could lead to leaking problems. Just run your hand over these 2 surfaces. If there are any damaged places that would keep the 2 pieces from coming completely together, take a flat file and smooth them out. Make sure that the area that the seal contacts is smooth, clean, and in good condition. Any nicks or gouges in the bonnet seal should be considered dangerous because if H2S under high pressure finds its way through the seal, well, you know what will happen. So if it's not in perfect condition, If there are any slits, nicks, or unnaturally flat places, or if it just appears to be worn out, replace it. This one's no good because it's twisted due to high pressure exposure. It won't seal anything. When you replace the bonnet seal, go ahead and cut the old one in half. That way there isn't any mistake about its condition, and this used seal won't accidentally get reused. And be careful about storage of these things too. If they're hung on a hook in the hot doghouse, they could become misformed, which will ruin them. If you got any question about the condition of one of them, then use another one. Clean the seal area out, and be sure it's perfectly clean. Don't grease the groove. Grease will only lubricate the back of the seal, which could allow it to twist and leak when you have to close the well in. Be especially careful in checking this area out. Now put the new bonnet seal in the seal groove. You might have to tap it in a little with a rubber mallet. Now inspect the ram change open piston and the ram change closed piston. They should be perfectly round and smooth. If there's any damage, they'll have to be replaced because there is only one small O-ring that seals the hydraulic pressure inside the intermediate flange here. It rides along the shaft of the piston. Any burrs or damaged areas will damage the seal and cause a leak. That's why you have to be very careful not to set anything on it while it's exposed, and make sure that they're clean, and put a little light oil or grease on them before closing the bonnet. Probably the most important seals, if any are more important than the others, are these on the rams. If they leak, they'll leak bad and you won't have a prayer. This one's your ram packer. It seals up against the ram packer on the other ram. It's a blind ram packer. And this one is for 5-inch drill pipe. This is your top seal. When the ram packer is installed in the ram, these two holes line up with the holes in the ram. These two pegs in the top seal fit through the holes and hold the packer in place. The two seals come together here, and this is the weakest part of the seal. The top seal and ram packers will usually begin to wear here first. The next area to wear is the packer facing. There should be rubber extending over these metal reinforcers. This ram is for 5-inch drill pipe. It'll usually begin to wear here. Tests show that you can run about 20,000 feet of drill pipe through the ram while it's closed before it's worn out. But after they've worn out, they won't close off very good, and the metal reinforcer will damage your pipe. A good rule of thumb is that the packer is good if there is still rubber extending over the metal reinforcers. Now, you don't want to have to replace good rubbers because they are expensive. Determining whether or not they're good is a difficult thing to do, especially considering how much is at stake. If you have any doubts about whether or not your rubbers are worn out, ask your supervisor. He's had more experience at this, and he should be able to make an accurate judgment. If he feels like these seals need to be replaced, be careful not to damage the ram removing them. It might take a little force to drive the top seal out, so be real careful. Okay, once it's loose, it'll come out easily. And finally, the front packer. It's usually more difficult than the top seal. Be sure that the inset areas are cleaned out real well. We don't want any mud or dirt caught down in here. Now grease the new seals with a light grease. This will help them slip into place easier, and it'll help them make a tighter seal. Don't use too much grease. Some of you guys think if a little grease is good, then a lot is great, but this isn't so. Too much grease will cause the parts to be too slippery. A light coat of very light grease or light oil will do fine. Okay, first the ram packer. Make sure that you put it in the right way. It's marked top. If you put it in upside down, you'll notice that the edges don't line up with the ram. Turn it over and it'll fit in nice and smooth. Tap it in with a mallet to make sure that it's snug. Check to see that the packer studs have lined up with the ram holes. Next, the top seal. Now slip it into place. You'll have to tap it too. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but it has to be to seal good. Be sure not to put a blind packer in a ram designed to handle drill pipe. I know this sounds like a stupid thing to say, but some people have been known to try it. Well, now we have a reconditioned set of rams in perfect condition. Our ram bores are clean and in good shape. The bonnet facing and seal are okay. Our preventer body facing is clean. The open and closed piston shafts check out, and there aren't any hydraulic leaks that we can tell. Now put a light coat of grease over the seal and over the sealing area of the preventer body. Also grease the operating piston and ram change pistons. And over the ram itself. We should be just about finished here. But first, before we seal them back up, let's check these cap screws and make sure that they're tight. Since they weren't leaking before, they probably are tight, but it won't hurt to make sure. Check the thread area in the preventer body where the bonnet bolts screw in. They should be clean, and so should the threads of the bonnet bolts. If there's any dirt in there, use a tap to clean it out. Make sure that you use the right thread size. Don't put any grease in the bonnet bolt holes, and only use a little light oil or light grease on the bolt. Well, everything seems to check out, so let's seal them back up now. Hey, wait a minute. We forgot to take the lifting eye off the ram. Boy, if you'd left that on there and closed that bonnet, you would have done some serious damage. Don't ever forget to remove it. The pressure behind that closed piston is enough to dent these facings. It should always be replaced back on the bonnet when you're through with it. Okay, if the open port isn't already connected, go ahead and hook the hydraulic line up to it. If the closed port isn't hooked up, connect a line to it too. Throw the lever, and the bonnets close. So far, no leaks. Now watch very closely as they close to make sure that the bonnet seals haven't slipped out of place. If they have, you'll have to open the bonnets back up and put them back in place. Make absolutely sure that they seat right, or you won't get a good seal. Now, it's real important that the bonnets be secure or we'll get a well leak. These bolts on both sides need to be tightened evenly and to the proper torque. If you have a way to measure your torque, we recommend 7,000 foot-pounds for a 13 5/8-inch bore, which is the size that we're dealing with here. This is for a 5,000 psi stack. Naturally, the requirements would be different for a 10,000 psi stack of 13 5/8-inch bore. If you don't have a way to measure your torque, you'll just have to follow these procedures. First, start your bonnet bolts and screw them up as tight as you can by hand. Now, pressure up your open side to about 1,500 psi. This will pull the bonnet up tight against the preventer body. Now tighten the screws down moderately tight like this. Upper left first, then the lower right. Upper right, and lower left. This will help to get it tightened down straight. Now go back and tighten them down good. Use the same pattern. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tighten them as tight as they'll go. Use a 20-pound sledge and hit it until it doesn't move anymore. You'll feel the sledge bounce off of the wrench when it's that tight. Now run a line down from the air hoist and get these bolts really tight. You can't get them too tight. Okay, now double check to be sure that they're all tight. Now take a 5/1000 feeler gauge and check for a gap between the preventer body and the intermediate flange. Check all the way around at all points, top, sides, and bottom. If the gauge fits into the crack anywhere, you haven't got the bonnet tightened down right. Somehow it's binding and won't close. Loosen all of the bolts up a little, not much, that are furthest from the gap. Now tighten the nearest bolt more, then tighten the others down. This should help make the bonnet seat properly. Now check again with the feeler gauge. There shouldn't be any gaps at all. If there is still a gap, chances are that your bonnet seal slipped out of its groove and is smashed between the intermediate flange and the preventer body. It'll have to be replaced. Well, let's check out the closed side of the ram and make sure it doesn't leak. Pressure the hydraulic closing system up to 1500 psi and hold it there. You should keep the pressure at 1500 psi for at least 15 minutes to make sure that there aren't any leaks. Look very carefully to be sure that we don't have any. First, check around the intermediate flange and the preventer body. If there aren't any leaks here, look at the connection between the bonnet and the intermediate flange. Okay, now examine the locking screw housing. After about 15 minutes of testing, open the ram. If they seem to open and close properly and there aren't any leaks, your BOP should be in good shape. Now you'll have to perform a pressure test on the rams to be sure that they're closing off securely. This is done by introducing a high pressure into the well and shutting the rams. Since it's a detailed process and procedures vary from land to offshore, we'll get into this in a later tape. Be sure that your rams are open before you go lowering any pipe down through them, unless you particularly want to go through this inspection procedure again. You can ruin a set of rams and damage the ram bore real quick by making this mistake. Now, briefly, let's talk about a couple of safeguards built into the BOP for land use. In an emergency, if your Kuma unit doesn't work right, you know that you can close your BOP off manually, right? Well, make sure that your manual turn wheels are connected at all times, because in the event of an emergency, you don't have time to mess with gathering up all the parts and connecting the things. And when a well is closed in, be sure that you use the manual locks. If you develop a leak in your Kuma unit while the well is closed in, you've got problems if your manual locks aren't closed. And another problem that you might run into, if the well pressure gets too high, this little O-ring on the operating piston shaft might not hold. If your manual locks aren't closed, the well pressure will push the operating piston open, and you'll have an instant blowout. If your manuals are closed, well pressure can push all day, and it won't open the rams. But it can create other problems, so the designers of the BOP have provided us with an emergency cure for this. The BOP is designed with the compression seal here over the operating piston shaft. Remove the pipe plug and the packer nut. Now remove the check valve and make sure it's clean and works right. Okay, now replace the check valve. And take a little plastic packing, about half the stick, dip it in oil, and drop it into the hole. Now put the packer nut back into the hole and tighten it down till you feel it contact the plastic packer. Then replace the pipe plug. If a well leak occurs at the operating piston shaft, unscrew the pipe plug and tighten the packer nut down into the hole. This forces the packing material through the check valve and into the seal area. The pressure pushes the seal tighter around the shaft and will make it quit leaking. Get some more plastic packer and continue to force it into the seal area till you can't force any more in. Then replace the pipe plug. This procedure is for emergency situations only, but you should know how to do it if the time ever comes, and you need to know, and you should always have plastic packer in place ready to be forced through the check valve at all times. Well, we've covered a lot so far in this tape, and I hope you have a better idea of how to take care of your preventer. Let's go back over some of the more important things. What's the first thing you need to do, even before starting to work on the BOP? Clean up your work area. After the bonnet bolts have been unscrewed, which side of the preventer do you apply pressure to open the bonnets? Strangely enough, you apply pressure to the closed side. How bad does a leak have to be before you can't use the preventer? Any leak is a problem and indicates that the preventer needs to be repaired. Do you remember what to look for while inspecting bonnet seals for damage? Twisting, nicks or cracks, and unnaturally flat places. Do you or don't you grease the bonnet seal groove? No, you don't, because excess grease will make the seal twist under pressure and could cause a leak. But do grease the seal after it's been installed. How do you tell when your ram packers are worn out? If there isn't any rubber sticking out beyond the metal reinforcers, ask your supervisor. And if there's any wear along the area where the top seal meets the packer, it needs to be replaced. Can the ram packers be installed wrong? Yes, they can be installed upside down. The packer is marked top, so put it in the right way and grease them too. Before sealing the bonnets back up, what should you check? Everything. Make sure that everything is greased, and don't forget to take the lifting eye off the ram. Now, how do you tighten the bonnet bolts down? Put 1500 psi on the open side of the preventer, then tighten the bolts upper left first, then lower right, upper right and lower left. Get it tight. Use an air hoist. You can't get them too tight. Then check them with a 5/1000 feeler gauge to make sure that they're down tight. What about the manual locks? Well, just make sure that your turn wheels are always connected and use them when you have to close your well off. Finally, what's a compression seal? It's an emergency seal to be used to help contain well pressure in the operating piston area. Be sure that it's ready for an emergency situation. If you've got any doubts about the condition of your BOP, just remember, your job is on the line, and more importantly, so's your life. So keep this in mind as you check out your BOP.